Hello everyone and welcome to Beginner's Code. Today we are going to learn how we can make a web-based game using Python and JavaScript. Okay, so first thing that we've done is created a folder. It's just an empty folder. I know I've opened it in my terminal and in my Visual Studio Code. So what we'll do now is we will create a virtual environment. So we'll just say python 3-m venv with the name of myenv. And now we'll go source myenv bin activate, and we'll just make sure that it's all in there. So now that it's active, we can install Flask. So pip3 install Flask. Whilst that's happening, we'll just create our templates and our static structure. So inside the static, we will have styles.css, and inside the templates, we will have index.html. And then in the root of the directory, we'll have our app.py. So now that this is all installed, we'll go back to our app.py and we will install the dependencies that we need. So we'll say from Flask, import Flask, request, JSONify, and render template. Now we'll say app is equal to Flask and we'll pass in name, and then we will say if name is double equal to main, app.run debug is equal to true. Okay, so now we can just create our first root. So we'll say app.root, and this will just be the home screen. We'll say def index, and we will return render template of index.html. And then in here, just to make sure that everything's working, we will put hello world. And now we can run our app.py and we get a development server. So now if we copy this and head over to Google Chrome, we can see hello world outputting correctly, which is perfect. Okay, so now we can remove that. We will just create a HTML5 boilerplate. We'll say Tic Tac Toe, and we will link to our static folder. And we will say the file name is equal to styles.css. I've just noticed that that is spelt wrong. So now that's correct. That should all link up. And if we go back to here and we view page source, after refreshing, you'll see static styles.css. Okay. So now in our app.py, we want a class that is going to handle all the tic-tac-toe logic, including the board, the winning combinations, and track the current player. So what we'll do is we'll create a class called Tic-Tac-Toe. And when we initialize the class, we will just create 3 different variables. So we'll say self.board, and this will be a list of empty strings, and we will times that by 9. So we will have 9 empty strings. We will then say self.currentPlayer, and when it starts, it will be equal to X. And we will say self.winning combinations. Now this is going to be an array of tuples. So to start with, we want to have a look at the rows. So we will have 0, 1, and 2, because on tic-tac-toe you would want 0, 1, and 2 as a row for a winning combination. You will then have 3, 4, 5, which will be the second row. And then you will have 6, 7, and 8, which will be the third row. We'll then look at columns, so that will be going down. So you can have the 0, 3, or 6, which will be the left-hand column. You can have 1, 4, and 7, which will be the middle column, and 2, 5, and 8, which will be the right-hand column. Now finally, you can also win by going diagonal. So you'd have 0, 4 and 8, which will be top left to bottom right. And you can also have 2, 4 and 6, I think, which will be top right to bottom left, if I'm correct. Okay, so now that we have the variables set up, we need to create some different methods. So the tic-tac-toe board, you obviously need to be able to make a move. You need to be able to check a winner. You need to get the winning combination, and you need to be able to reset the board. So to start, we will make the move. So we'll say def make move. We'll pass in self and the position. So this will be the position that the user will have clicked on. So we'll say if self.board at the index of position is double equal to an empty string, then that means that it is a legitimate go and you can go there. So we'll say self.board position is double equal to self.currentPlayer. And we'll say self.currentPlayer is equal to O if self.currentPlayer is equal to X. Otherwise, it will be equal to X. So what this is doing is if it's a blank square, when the user clicks on it, if player X clicks on it, it will set X in the position, and then it will make the new current player 0 or player O. Otherwise, if it's player O, it will put an O in the position, and then it will make the new current player X. And then we will just return true. And then outside of this, we will return false. So if this is all run successfully, then we will get true back. If it's not run successfully, we will get false back. Next, we will do a function to check the winner. And we will just say self. So now we want to loop through these winning combinations that we have up here. So we'll say for combo in self.winning combinations. We'll say if self.board at the index of combo and then at the index of 0 is double equal to self.board at the index of combo and then at the index of 1, and it's double equal to self.board at the index of combo at the index of 2, and then not equal to an empty string. Oh, don't know what happened there. They're not equal to an empty string, then we will return self.board with the combo at the index of 0. So this is essentially checking that the combo here, so this combo, if the index 0, index 1 and index 2 are not empty strings, then we have a winner. That's essentially what it's saying. And then we'll say if empty string not in self.board, return tie, because obviously if there is not an empty string left in the board, then we have a tie because there are no possible places that someone can go. And then if neither of those have been able to run, if neither of the return statements are fired, we're going to return none, and that will essentially mean that we have an error somewhere. Now, we kind of want to do the same thing, but instead of returning the self.board combo, we are going to just return the combo, because we want to know what the winning combination is, because we can then make the tiles a different color depending on which one was the winner. So we'll say def get winning combination. We'll pass in self, and then here we'll say for combo in self.winning combinations, and then we'll use this line again. So we'll check to make sure that the combination does not have, each combination does not have a blank space or a blank string for each one. And then if it's true, we'll return combo, because that will mean that say for instance player X has gone in the top left, the top middle and the top right, then that is the winning combination. So that is the combo that we will be returning. And then we'll just say otherwise return none. And again, that will then mean that we have an error. Now we need a function that resets the board. So we'll say def reset board, and we'll just pass in self. And then we'll say self.board is equal to a space, and then we'll times that by 9. Okay, so now we have a representation of how it should work. We now need to be able to make it so that our routes will all interact with everything. So what we'll do is we will instantiate the Tic Tac Toe board, and we will just have our game. So that will then mean that we can use the game and see what the game looks like in a very easy way. So the first thing that we'll do is we will pass this game variable to the index.html. So we'll say board is equal to game.board, and this will be passing in the list of blank strings up here. And then we'll go over to the index.html, and the first thing that we will do is we will create a container class, and we will say heading 1 tic tac toe, and then we'll create a div with an ID of gameboard, and then we'll say for I in range of 9 end 4, and then we will pass in, or we will inside of this loop, so this means that we are going to create 9 divs with the class of cell, and then we will give them all an ID, which will be the loop iteration. So now if we save that and come back to here and refresh, we see tic-tac-toe. We have a game board that has 9 different cells. Well, 8, but obviously the starting index is 0, so 9. So if we come back to our styles.css, what we'll do is we will create or target the container. We'll say text align center. We'll say display flex, justify content center, line items center, flex direction column, and we'll give the height 100 VH, which will take 100% of the viewport height, which is the size of the browser. So we'll then say heading 1, font size 24 pixels and margin bottom of 20 pixels. Now we'll say game board. We will give it a display of grid, and we'll say grid template columns, and this will be a repeat function, which will be 3, and then min max, which will be 0 and 1 fr. Now we're going to say grid gap 5 pixels and margin bottom of 20 pixels. And then now we will target the cells, and we will say each cell has a width of 130 pixels and a height of 130 pixels, which will make them square. We'll give them a font size of 36 pixels for the X or the O. We have a background color of F0, 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 and then a border of 1 pixel solid CCC, which will be another gray. And then we'll say display flex, justify content center, align items center, and that will put each one in the middle. But then if we add a cursor pointer, it will just mean that it looks like it's able to be clicked on. So now we have our game board being output, and you can essentially look at these and click on all of them, but we haven't actually linked anything up yet. So now that we have things working to a certain degree, let's create a way for things to interact. So if we come back to our index.html file, then at the bottom, if we just create a script, and we'll pass in the code.jQuery CDN, so jQuery.com, jQuery-3.6.0.min.js, and then if we create a script tag and we just console log and pass in, couldn't find the $sign then, pass in window, and if we come back to here, refresh and inspect console, we have our window. Perfect. Okay, so that can be removed now. And then inside of this script tag, what we'll do first is we will just create a document ready function that when you click on the cell, it will get the ID and then it will pass that to the make move. And then it will also update the board. So we'll say document.ready and we'll pass in function. And then here we're going to target the cell or the list of cells that we have. We'll create an event listener for every time it's clicked. And then inside of this, we will say var position is equal to parse int, so we can get the actual integer rather than the string, because Python will be looking for the integer rather than the string. So we'll say this, which references the specific cell that's been clicked on, atta, which will allow us to get the attribute for ID. So we will essentially be getting this, but because it's in a string, we are turning it into an integer. And then we will say make move and we'll pass in position. And then outside of this, we will say update board, and we are going to pass in the board variable that we had here. So board game.board. And this board variable, we just need to filter it so that it is to JSON. Now you will probably see some errors with this because it doesn't like the fact that you're using this syntax. But if we were to put it into a string, it doesn't work. So we need to make sure that this is like that and just pursue with the errors that we have. So the first thing that we're going to do is create a function that will be the make move. And we'll pass in the position. So this will be this function here. What we're going to do is use an AJAX request, and we will first use the URL. So we will say /make_move, and we'll say the method is a post method. The content type is application JSON, and then the data will be JSON.stringify, and it will be position, and then the actual position that's being passed in. So then if this is successful, we will say success, function and data. So this is what we are getting back. So here we will be able to have a success message in essence. So we'll say if data.status is triple equal to success, then we will update board with the data.board. Sorry, that should have been a function rather than an attribute. And then we'll say if data.winner, and then we'll say if data.winner is double equal to tie. And now we can output a status message. So if we come back up to here, outside of the game board, we will say div ID status message. And then we'll also here create a button, and this ID will be restart button. And it will just say restart game. So now back down here, we can say if the data winner is a tie, then we can target the status message. We'll say the text of this status message is the game has ended in a, and then we can add data.winner, and that will say the game has ended in a tie. And then we'll say else, and we will pass in status message, and then here we'll say text winner, and we will pass in who the winner is. So we'll say winner X player, or winner O player, or the game is entered in a tie. And then we will create a function or use a function called highlight winner, and then data.winning underscore combination. So that will then add a class to the specific tiles that we have clicked on to output, or to turn them a different color, say green, for example. And then otherwise, if there is no data winner, sorry, if there's no success, we will alert data.message, and this will just show a pop-up of what the error is that we have encountered. That looks better formatted. Okay. So now we have our make move function. We will now look at the highlight function. So outside of all of this, we will create a function called highlight winner, and this will take winning combination. And then inside of this, we will say cell.remove class winner. So that will just make sure that there are no cells that have the class of winner. And then we will loop through the winning combination. So we'll say for each, and then function position. So now we will then target the specific cell. Don't know what's happened there. So we'll say hashtag, and we'll say plus position, and then add class of winner. So then if there are, say, top 3, so 0, 1 and 2 cells, then we will have a winner. Next, we will do a function for the update board, and that will take in the board. And here we are going to use a cell, and we'll say .each function, and then pass in index. And here we are just going to say this .text is equal to board of index. Okay, so now we have this working to a certain degree. We now need to make sure that we have a root in our app.py that links to the make move. So if we go back into our app.py, we can say app.root make underscore move, and we are going to say methods is equal to post, and then we'll say def make underscore move. Now here we are going to use a request, so we'll say request.get underscore JSON, which is going to be the JSON here that's passed in, so the data here. And we are going to say position is equal to data position, so that will be the actual value of the position variable that's been passed in. We'll say if game.make underscore move position, which means that if this returns true, then we are going to say winner is equal to game.check winner. and we'll say winning combination is equal to game.get winning combination. And if so, we're going to return JSONify a status message that just says success. And then it will say winner, and it will pass in the winner, say board, and pass in the game.board. And then it's going to have the winning combinations, and it will pass in winning combinations. Sorry, winning combination, because it's that variable there. So then I'm just going to use Alt-Z just in case. Okay, so then if that returns else, so if this is not true, then we are going to use else, and we're just going to return JSONify a status message that says error, and the message will say something like invalid move. So now this status message will be outputted into here when a user has either won or made an invalid move. Okay, so now that we have these functions sorted, what we need to do is have a clean board on load, just in case things don't work. But to start with, we'll just make sure that this is actually working. So if I press a cell, it should output. Okay, so looking through the code, I realized there was a couple of mistakes. This winning combination had an S on it, so I have removed that. And then up here, if you go to the make move, self.board position, this needs to be equal to self.current player. This is why it wasn't outputting anything. It was just creating a new string or giving it a blank empty string. So now if I come back to Google Chrome and I refresh, if I click on this, it now makes it an X. And if I click on networking and then make move, which is the request, you'll see that it is now actually filled in the game board correctly. So now we can have a game of Tic Tac Toe with it outputting the winner of 0. However, the restart game doesn't actually do anything. So now we need to make sure that the restart game function is in. So if we come back to our index.html, down here we can create a new document ready. And we will say, well, actually, if we've already got a document ready, then it doesn't need a new one. So we've got a document ready at the top. So below this, we will say $.ajax. And then in here, we're going to say URL restart. And we're going to say method is equal to post content type application JSON. And then the success is just going to be a function with the data passed back. And we will say cell text is equal to an empty string. So now this is going to, every time we reload, or every time we go to the, every time we reload, it will make sure that there is a blank canvas. But next we now need to add a new function. So this will be an on-click event listener. And this will target the actual restart button. Restart button. Dot on click, and this will be a function, and then inside of here we're just going to say $.ajax, and this is going to be an AJAX request, and we'll say URL again to restart, method post content type will be application JSON, success of function, pass in the data. And then here we are just going to say cell.text is equal to a blank string and cell remove class of winner. So now when we click on the restart button, we will have a blank square with the winner not attributed. So if we come back to here, if we just make sure that the winner class is outputting correctly, okay, so we have winner there, and winner there. So now if I restart the game, if I refresh, this should on load be putting those back. But the reason why it's not is because we don't actually have a restart route set up yet. So if we come back down to here and we say app.route/restart, then we can pass in the methods and we'll say post, and we'll just say clear, def clear, and then inside this we'll say game.reset board, and then we'll return JSONify status. This needs to be inside of a dictionary. Status success. Okay, so the app.py should be working correctly. We now have the restart button set up. So if we refresh the page, we now have a clear board and we can start interacting properly. We then press restart and we have a clear board. Okay, so let's add the final bits of styling just to make sure that it looks uniform, the status message looks a little bit nicer, and we actually have a clear, distinct winner. So we will say status message, and we'll give that a font size of 18 pixels and a margin bottom of 20 pixels. We're then going to use the restart button, and the restart button will have a padding of 10 pixels and 20 pixels, a font size of 18, a background color of 4CA50, a color of white, a border none, and a border radius of 4 pixels, and then we'll just say cursor pointer. We're then going to give the restart button a hover. So restart button with the pseudo of hover. We'll say background color 45A049, which is just a little bit of a darker green. We're then going to say cell hover, just to make it look a little bit nicer for that. We'll say background color E0, E0, E0. That will make sure that it changes different to depending on what one you've hovered over, because obviously you don't want to click on something that you're not actually hovering on. And then we'll say .winner and .winner hover, and we'll say background color of 7FF00, and that will make it a brighter green. So now if we refresh, we have a nicer button down here. We can then make sure that there is a winner, and we have a winner going diagonally with the status message and a nicer green for the hover. Hopefully this has helped you grasp how we can use Python logic with JavaScript to create an interactive web-based game. If you learned something today, please hit that like button and make sure you subscribe to see new videos coming. Thanks, and I'll see you again soon.